Hi, this is Dave Chenault with Skylight Systems, and in this video I'm going to show you how to set up security and the permissions in SideKick365 xRM so that you can set up different profiles and apply these to accounts, opportunities, and contacts and limit who can see what in the system. So let's get started. We're going to walk through all the steps necessary to set this up. And just kind of pause and take notes as I go through this to help you understand better of what's going on. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and set up a new site for SideKick365 Enterprise, and from here out I'm just going to call it SideKick365. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a new site, and the way to do that is I just come into Site Contents on the root, and now it's going to say New Subsite, and I'll go ahead and do that. And I'm going to call this one USA, and we'll do the same here, USA. And I'm going to make it a team site, and I can do different languages. As you probably are aware, our app now supports 10 different languages, and we're adding more all the time. But in this case, I'll pick English. And this is an important step here. I'm going to go ahead and select use the unique permissions option, and then I'll leave everything else the same and say create. So what that does is that actually breaks permissions and makes all the different security settings that I'm going to have for the app unique to just the app. And we want to do that for some reasons I'll explain in just a few minutes. So another thing I want to do is make sure that I've got the members of the site that are going to use the app added here. And I can always update this later. But let's go ahead and add in a few users here right now. I've got a user named Alan Steiner that I'm going to add in, and I'll go ahead and do that here. And I'll add in a couple other users. I'll add in Amy Alberts. She's another person I want to add in. Let's see if she's in here. And I'll also add in Diane Prescott. So these are all users of SideKick365 that are going to be using the app. And so I want to add them as members so they can access it. Because after all, remember, it's a SharePoint hosted app, which means that it's going to use the permissions in SharePoint to manage who can see the app and what they can do with it. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to just have these three additional users in addition to the admin on the site. And I'm going to say OK. Now, what I want to do as well is once I get this set up, I'm going to have the basic site here ready to go. Now, before I do too much more, there's a couple of important other things I want to do. The first is I'm going to set up some new groups. And I'm going to do that by going into the site settings, people and groups. And I'm going to set up a new group with full permissions. And I'm going to call this one XRM permission owners. You can call it whatever you want. But in my case, it just makes it easy to find things. So let's go to groups. It'll take a second here. And what I'll do is I'm going to actually create a new group. So we'll let SharePoint catch up to us here. And I'm going to call that one XRM permission owners. And it'll be owned by the administrator. And who can view members? The members can. Who can edit? I think we're going to leave that just the group owner. We don't want other people adding users to this group. It's kind of a special group. And allow requests to join. Leave it. No, we don't want that. Auto accept. No, we don't want that. Now, here's an important consideration. By breaking permissions, I'm able here to set the permission level on this site. So I'm going to make this one full control. And this is very important because the people I add to this group are going to be able to create the permission or the security groups that we apply in SideKick365 and also be able to create them and edit them as well. So only people with full control are going to be able to do that, to manage those permissions and those security levels that we set. Now, and that's a good idea. So let's go ahead and just put in that one Alan. So in addition to the administrator, I'm going to add Alan into that group. So let's do that now. Alan S. And there he is. And I'm going to share it. So now Alan is a member of that XRM permissions owners group, and that means he's going to be able to set different security levels on the accounts, opportunities, and also on the contacts. Okay, so we're off to a good start. Now the next thing we want to do is I know that Alan is a salesperson, and I want to set up a sales group where he has an assistant named, let's have it be Diane Prescott in this case. So I'm going to set up a new group. And you can see here that I've got a message that was just added in that USA group. So now let's go ahead and make a new group. Let's call this one Alan S. and call it Alan S. Reed. Okay. So we've got that group we're creating now. And the owner can be the administrator, that's fine. And this one's going to have the read permissions. Okay, and we're also going to have Alan be a member of that and Diane. So let's go ahead and do that now. And this is the read one. So I'll take just a minute to make this group. And let's add in Diane and Alan. So in this case, let's say that Diane is actually a manager. So we don't want her changing things, but we do want her able to see things in these different accounts, etc. Right? So when she goes in the system, she'll be able to see them. And we'll share that now. And I'll make another new group, and we'll call it Alan S. Edit. And in this case, I think we'll have Amy be a member that can edit things as well as Alan, just because we want her to be able to work on anything that Alan's working on as well. So let's go back into the groups again, and I'm going to make a new group called Alan S. Edit. Okay, and in this time it's fine, we can make it the CIA admin, doesn't matter to me. If I want, I could make it Alan as well. You can see I'm getting messages from the system. This one's going to be Edit. Okay, and I'm going to say go ahead and create it. And in this case, we're going to have Amy as a member because we want her to be able to change anything that Alan could also change. So that's Amy Alberts, and we'll also put Alan in this group too because he's the owner of these. Let's share it. Okay, so now we're doing pretty good. We've got some new groups, and let's take a look at those. I've got Alan S. Edit, Alan S. Read. I've set up an XRM permissions owners group. I could put some notes here as well, which might be very useful to tell people what these are. But the idea here is that I want to set up this permission owners group for anybody that's going to be setting permissions in SideKick365 xRM, and then I want to have pairs of these, edit and read, for everybody that I want to have able to set profiles on in the system. And by that I mean, let's say you have sales teams of people, right? And so you might have different regions, different salespeople, etc. So you want to set up these pairs here so that when you go and create a contact or an opportunity and you want to limit who can see them, the people that belong to these groups will be the only ones who can see it in the system besides the admin. So I hope all that made sense. If you have lots of sales guys, you'd be basically setting up pairs of these for each person and then assigning members to these groups. Now, one thing to think about is that these are SharePoint groups. And what you're going to want to do is if you have, let's say you have managers of sales teams, and you want these managers to be part of a lot of different salespeople's groups. The right way to do that is go ahead and make a group of those managers in Active Directory or up in Office 365, the identity manager there, and then just add those groups into these groups, and we call that nesting. So then you have one group you're managing of, let's say, the sales managers. They're used everywhere, and you can add people in and out of that group, and it'll trickle down throughout the system. So we've done a lot of work here. We're in pretty good shape. we've got Alan's two groups. We've got the permission owners. Let's come on in here now. I'm going to go back to the site. And the next thing I want to do is I'm going to add the app. So now I go into my site contents, and I'm going to add an app. In this case, it's going to be SideKick365 xRM Enterprise, which is this guy here. And I'll trust it, and it'll take just a minute to add it. And so now what will happen is I'm going to have SideKick added to this site. And this is the way it works. The app is within a site in SharePoint. It kind of lives in the site. And then you'll see in a minute when it's done that I'll be able to see this new app as a link on the left-hand side. So it takes just a minute to create that new app. And when it's done, it'll alert me and I'll be able to go see it. It looks like it's working away. It should be done in just a minute. So just to review while we're waiting for the app, what we did is we created a group to administer permissions. And we called that one XRM Permission Owners. And that had full control in the site, this site called USA. And then we created a couple of groups there for Alan that we're going to use in a minute for his profile. And then we went ahead and added the app to the site called USA. So now we've got a American-based version of SideKick365 Enterprise. And while it's doing that, actually an interesting thing to see while we're here is let's look at SideKick in Japanese while we're here and waiting anyway. So what we've done is we've actually got 10 localized versions now. We're adding a couple more. So by the time this video is ready, we should have one for Australia and the UK as well. And what you'll see here in a moment is that we've localized this one to Japanese. We're actually going to be adding other languages in the future, but we've got Dutch, we've got Danish, Norwegian, Italian, German, French, Spanish, Japanese, English, Portuguese, and we'll be adding localized versions for Brazil, Australia, the UK, because even though it's Portuguese in both countries, the currency is different in Portugal and Brazil, and the same goes for the USA and the UK or some other English-speaking countries. So here it's interesting. You can see SideKick365 Enterprise in Japanese, and you can see a task here, an opportunity, and when I click on it, what you'll see is that all the screens have been translated into Japanese character sets, the drop downs, the buttons, etc., and that you can then work in a local language with the proper currency and date settings as well. So you can see here if I wanted to pick to edit it, and I can see that it's edit in English because that's the language underneath the covers here. And I can do my drop down. You'll see that I have the drop downs working. I can change owners. I can do different statuses, etc. Right on the opportunity, and all in Japanese, and even the buttons, etc. And then, of course, I could write in Japanese too. So kind of interesting while we're waiting on that next site to instantiate to see how far you can take these apps right now. And so again, we'll just I'll pick a date and save it. I'll change it here and let it do its thing here. So it just takes a minute. We'll be done with that. Okay, and so while we're waiting on that, let's go back over to our new site that I just made a minute ago. And I'll pick that home page where I created the USA, and I'll go back into that and take a look at it. So I'll take just a minute here. And when I go back in the USA site, I should be able to see that new app instantiated for us. So let's go take a look. So it's called USA. You'll see that. And you can see too that I have different sites underneath this root. One's for Japan, one's for the United States. So I can have different apps all in the same site collection, if you will. And let's go on in, and there it is. There's the app we were looking for. Now it's ready to go. So if I come into that, it'll take a minute the very first time I come in to create the menus. And you can see here it's initializing those the first time. And now I'm all set to go with SideKick365 Enterprise. Now, I can log in as Alan and be able to set permissions, etc. on these different items. Let's do the next step in this, and that is the final piece of the puzzle is making the security profiles. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to create a new profile, and I'm going to call it Alan S for the profile, his security profile. And the read group in this case is going to be the group that I created, which was Alan S read. It'll come up here in a minute. And the edit group is going to be Alan S edit, which will come up here in a minute. So all the members that I had in the read group will be given read permissions to whatever I assign this security profile to, and all the people in the edit group will be given edit permissions to whoever I assign it to. So there's my save. And let's go ahead and use this. So I'll make a new account. And I'll call this one account 1. And we'll just go account 1. And I'll put the profile, so now I should see that drop down of Alan S. And the only required field here is name, so I'm just going to leave the rest blank for the purposes of this demo. And now I will have a account that's going to be created with that security permission setting on it for the Alan S. Meaning, if I wasn't part of his read or edit group or this site administrator, I wouldn't see this account when I go to the account list. So let's go take a look. And we can test that a little bit. We'll play around a little bit here and see how it works. But now when I go to accounts, I should see that one listed. And it's a little slow because of my recording, but normally you'd see it pretty fast. So there's account 1. It's owned by the administrator. Now what I want to do is log out. So I'm going to copy this. I want to come back into this again. I'm going to do a quick copy. And what I'm going to do now is come in as a different user. So let's go into our in private browsing and look at a few things as I log in as different users in the system. Let's log in the first time as Amy. So we'll do Amy A at, actually let's do Diane Prescott. I think it's Diane P. We double check her spelling. Yep. And let's see if we can get in this way. See if I remember her passwords. Well, let's just do Alan just to make things easy. I don't remember her password off the top of my head, but we'll do Alan here. Okay, so when Alan comes in, he ought to be able to see that account because remember he was made a person that had edit rights. So let's go take a look at that. It'll be a second. And even more importantly, since he's part of the XRM owners, he should be able to set the permissions on it. But the other users, Amy and Diane, should not be able to set it when we hit edit. So let's go take a look and see if he sees that account. And there it is. That's exactly what we'd expect. So if we had another person, and we'll add another person in a minute to kind of compare what happens when we do that. And my phone's ringing, so sorry. I'll have to get that one later. But let's go ahead and create a new account. And what you'll see is I have the drop-down activated. I can do that. So we'll make this account 2. And it's owned by Alan, and I'll call it account 2. And let's say save. Okay. Now I'm going to go back over to the site I was just in a minute ago as the admin. And I want to go up to the root, the site that hosts the app, and I'm going to add in a new user to that member group. So let's go into site settings. And let's go into the people and groups. And what you'll see is I have the USA members, and I'm going to add in a new member to that group. So let's go to USA members. And then these people now can get into the site, right? So let's add in a new person. Say it's Brad. So let's share it now with Brad. Now Brad now can get into the site, but he really doesn't have any access to anything in it. So if he logs into SideKick365, when he comes in, he won't see any of the accounts that have the LNS profile because he's not a member of the LNS read or LNS edit groups. If I added him to one of these, he'd be able to see anything with his profile. And again, I hope that all made sense to you. And so with Brad, we just want to be able to go in, log in as Brad, and see what he can see. So I'm going to end this video here as part 1. I'm going to go ahead and double check all my passwords on some of these other users I have. In part 2, we're going to take a look at this same site and what the other users see when they log in and what they can do by way of the different groups they belong to. So just to recap, I set up a new site. I added a new group called XRM Permission Owners with full control. Those guys in that group can set permissions. I created 2 groups. One was an LNS edit and an LNS read that had edit and read permissions. I then went ahead and added SideKick365 xRM Enterprise as an app, and I created that new app within the USA site, picking it as a localized US version. I showed you a Japanese version of SideKick as well. And then I added in a couple of records, one with admin as the owner, one with Alan as the owner as well. And what we'll do now is we'll come back and take a look in part 2 of what different users can see based on these different groups they belong to. So this is Dave Chenault with Skylight Systems. I thank you for spending the time with me on this part 1 of the setting up permissions and security profiles in SideKick 365, and I look forward to seeing you on the video number 2.